What if the very thing that made us human is also what makes existence unbearable? A human awoke to a terrifying realization. He felt exposed under a vast, indifferent sky, a stranger in his own flesh. His probing mind began to dismantle the world, revealing endless layers of awe and terror. This is the moment, according to a radical thinker, when our greatest strength became a fatal flaw. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, the Irish elk, a truly massive deer, roamed the earth. It was a spectacular product of evolution, crowned with antlers spanning 12 feet. For ages, these antlers were vital tools for survival and mating. But in time, they grew too large. They became a crippling weight, making the animal slow and clumsy, hindering its escape from predators and its search for food. The very feature designed to ensure its survival now threatened its extinction. And a philosopher saw in this animal a perfect mirror for humanity itself. Alongside the elk's reign and eventual disappearance, humanity was rising. By the time the last giant deer fell, our ancestors, armed with a new kind of mind, were already shaping the world. This consciousness was our evolutionary weapon, forged for survival in a brutal world. It enabled civilization, art, and morality. Yet, the Norwegian philosopher Peter Wessel Zapf argued it was also a profound evolutionary miscalculation. He believed our awareness has grown beyond its practical use, becoming a crushing burden that turns being alive into a fundamental problem. We are a weapon pointed back at ourselves. Zapf, born in 1899, was a man of fascinating contradictions. He was a skilled mountaineer who conquered untouched peaks, a trained lawyer, and a deeply melancholic existential philosopher. His writing possesses a unique power to pull even the most content person from the sunny hills of certainty into the shadowy valleys of doubt. What unified his life was a profound and unshakable awareness of mortality, a sensitivity to the suffering and futility that our advanced minds cannot help but perceive. In 1933, he published a short, explosive essay titled The Last Messiah. It was a precise strike against the comfortable illusions that society holds dear. He measured the immense, teetering weight of human consciousness inside the skull. Like the elk's antlers, he saw this awareness as a load that reveals the horrifying truth of our condition. We are trapped in decaying bodies, governed by chaotic laws, and abandoned by a silent universe in our search for meaning. This, he thought, should make humanity's long-term survival impossible. So why are we still here? The elk, of course, could not solve its problem. It couldn't simply shed its antlers. But Zapf proposed that humans can, and do, perform a version of this. We actively limit our consciousness to make life bearable. He identified 4 primary methods we use to trim our antlers. The first is isolation. This is the act of shoving disturbing thoughts back into the shadows. We ignore the unsettling truths of existence. Our social customs are built on this. It is considered deeply rude to speak openly of death, futility, or the absurd in casual conversation. We shelter our own minds like parents protecting a child from a harsh world, telling ourselves simple, comforting stories. The second method is anchoring. This is where we, as a society, create fixed points to cling to for stability and purpose. We anchor ourselves to ideas like God, the nation, a political cause, or a sacred tradition. These structures give us a sense of direction in a directionless universe. The third is distraction. We keep ourselves constantly busy. We build careers, follow sports, chase entertainment, and immerse ourselves in daily chores. We engage in a kind of play fight with life, using soft toys instead of real weapons, to avoid confronting the true, sharp edge of our awareness. We fill the silence, so we don't have to listen to the void. Finally, there is sublimation. This is the rarest and most potent method. It is the process of channeling our existential dread and anxiety into creative expression, transforming suffering into art, music, or philosophy. It is an alchemy of the soul, making something novel from the raw material of despair. To create is to defy the void with a whisper. But Zapfe saw a critical flaw in all these strategies. They are temporary fixes that require constant denial of our true nature. They are a form of self-mutilation, forcing us to be less than what we are. We ensure our survival as a species, but we sacrifice the chance to live as fully conscious beings. To be completely whole, to stare directly into the abyss, would be too much. Zapf speculated it would lead us to a collective decision to stop reproducing, ending the human project altogether. This presents a terrifying dilemma. To live fully is to reject life, but to continue living requires us to live a lie. He envisioned a final Messiah, a figure who would reveal this unbearable truth to humanity, causing us to finally succumb to the weight of our knowledge. But must our only choices be self-deception or self-destruction? Perhaps there is a third path. Maybe we can learn to stop seeking resolution. What if we could shed not our consciousness, but our desperate need for purpose and solace? What if we could embrace our aimless condition without fear? Zapf's own life hints at this possibility. He climbed literal mountains and philosophical ones, facing the darkness he wrote about without looking away. His work itself was a form of sublime transcendence. This is the paradoxical ability of humanity, to confront reality and still ascend. Our continued existence is not guaranteed, but if we persist, we can evolve. We can grow stronger necks to bear the weight. Our vision can rise, and the world may open up before us. Now, let us explore further into the echoes of Zapf's ideas across different philosophies and how they interact with the modern world. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, for instance, presented a similarly grim view of existence. He described the world as driven by a blind, irrational will, leading to perpetual suffering and want. Schopenhauer believed that only through aesthetic contemplation, immersing oneself in art or music, or through ascetic denial of the will, could one find temporary respite from this torment. This closely aligns with Zapf's concept of sublimation, but Schopenhauer saw it as a form of resignation rather than an active transformation. He argued that life is essentially suffering, and the best we can do is to minimize it through detachment. This perspective adds depth to Zapf's claim that our consciousness is a burden, suggesting that the very nature of desire and will is the root of our pain. Moving into the 20th century, existentialist philosophers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre grappled with similar themes but offered different responses. Camus introduced the concept of the absurd, the conflict between humanity's search for meaning and the universe's silent indifference. In his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus uses the myth of Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, as a metaphor for the human condition. But unlike Zapf, Camus proposes rebellion, embracing the absurd and finding happiness in the struggle itself. He writes, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy." This rebellion can be seen as a form of sublimation that goes beyond mere coping. It is an active affirmation of life in the face of meaninglessness. Sartre, on the other hand, emphasized radical freedom and responsibility. He famously stated that existence precedes essence, meaning that humans are not born with a fixed purpose, but must create their own through choices. This responsibility can lead to anguish, but it also empowers us to define our values authentically. While Zapf might view this as another anchoring mechanism, Sartre would argue that it is only deceptive if we fail to acknowledge our freedom. From a psychological standpoint, Zapf's defense mechanisms find parallels in modern theories. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis introduced concepts like repression and sublimation. Freud saw sublimation as a positive redirection of primal urges into socially acceptable activities, such as art or science, which matches Zapf's description. However, Freud believed that some level of repression is necessary for civilization to function, whereas Zapf saw all such mechanisms as ultimately self-destructive. In contemporary cognitive science, research on depressive realism suggests that individuals with depression may have a more accurate perception of reality, supporting Zapf's idea that consciousness reveals harsh truths. Yet, other studies indicate that healthy minds often use positive illusions such as overestimating one's abilities or future happiness to maintain mental well-being. This ties into Zapf's isolation, where ignoring reality can be adaptive. Mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy offer modern approaches to managing existential anxiety by encouraging present moment awareness and challenging negative thought patterns, which can be seen as structured forms of distraction or isolation that promote functioning without full denial. In today's digital age, Zapf's four methods are more relevant than ever. Distraction is engineered into our daily lives through smartphones, social media, and streaming services. Notifications and infinite scroll keep our minds perpetually occupied, avoiding moments of silence where existential questions might arise. Anchoring has evolved into digital tribalism, where people cling to online communities, political ideologies, or influencer personas for identity and certainty. Isolation is practiced through curated social media feeds and echo chambers that filter out dissenting views and uncomfortable truths. Yet, sublimation thrives on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and podcasts, where creators transform their philosophical inquiries and personal struggles into content that resonates with global audiences. This modern sublimation allows for collective engagement with existential themes, turning individual dread into shared exploration. However, criticisms of Zapf's theory abound. Is consciousness truly maladaptive? From an evolutionary perspective, it has enabled humans to dominate the planet through innovation, cooperation, and cultural development. While it brings awareness of mortality and suffering, it also fosters empathy, ethical reasoning, and long-term planning. The problem may not be consciousness itself, but how we balance its gifts and burdens. Practices from Eastern philosophies, such as Buddhism, offer alternative approaches. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment and desire, and through mindfulness and meditation, one can achieve enlightenment by letting go of the self. This process resembles sublimation but aims for transcendence rather than expression. By observing thoughts without judgment, individuals can reduce suffering without denying reality, suggesting a middle path between Zapf's extremes of full awareness or total denial. Moreover, Zapf's prediction of human extinction due to conscious realization seems speculative. Throughout history, humanity has faced numerous crises, wars, plagues, environmental disasters, and has adapted through resilience and innovation. The current challenges of climate change and technological disruption require collective consciousness and global cooperation, which could lead to a new era of societal evolution rather than collapse. Transhumanism, for example, explores how technology might enhance human capabilities, potentially alleviating the burdens of consciousness through cognitive augmentation or virtual realities. These advancements could provide new forms of sublimation or even redefine what it means to be human. On a personal level, how can we apply these insights? Recognizing our use of Zapf's defense mechanisms is the first step toward greater self-awareness. Instead of automatically isolating, anchoring, or distracting, we can practice sitting with discomfort, exploring our anxieties through journaling, therapy, or philosophical dialogue. Engaging in creative pursuits, whether art, writing, or music, can channel existential dread into meaningful expression. Building authentic connections with others who share similar questions can reduce the sense of isolation and provide support. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate these mechanisms, but to use them consciously and in balance, allowing us to live more authentically. Zapf's philosophy, while dark, serves as a powerful invitation to examine the foundations of our lives. It challenges us to question the stories we tell ourselves and the ways we avoid the truth, but it also opens the door to a more engaged and courageous existence. By facing the abyss with open eyes, we may find that the weight of consciousness is not just a burden but also a privilege, the source of our deepest questions and our most profound achievements. As we continue to evolve, both individually and as a species, we can learn to carry this weight with strength and grace, turning our antlers into crowns that allow us to see further and reach higher than ever before. If you found this exploration of the human condition compelling, please support this channel by liking this video and subscribing to Winds of Thought for more journeys into the depths of ideas. Thank you for watching.